The wife was giving birth painfully, while her husband was sleeping soundly beside her. It was not until the child was born that her husband gave her a symbolic kiss on the forehead. Exhausted, Mary had no energy to pay attention to her husband's perfunctory attitude. After resting for a while, Mary was still very weak. She wanted David to help her go to the bathroom, but David fell asleep next to her again. In desperation, she could only use all her strength to slowly move towards the bathroom. It was not easy for Mary after returning home. She would be awakened by the crying of the child every night, and even had to wait until the child and husband fell asleep before cleaning gently. Every day was a high-intensity work of 20 hours, and Mary was even tired enough to fall asleep next to the toilet. David would only play games when he got home after get off work, and he thought he had fulfilled all his responsibilities as a husband. So Mary, who had no source of income, asked David to hire a night nanny to take care of her newborn daughter. But David disagreed, thinking that taking care of a child was not hard. The torture of the child and the lack of understanding of her husband gradually made Mary collapse. A few days later, there was a knock on the door. It was a young girl who claimed to be a nanny. Mary was not sure that she could take good care of her daughter, looking at this nanny who looked very similar to her when she was young, but was completely different from what she imagined. However, the nanny coaxed the baby to sleep skillfully. She asked Mary to go back to her room to rest early, and Mary went back to her room half-believingly. What surprised Mary was that she didn't hear a single cry of the baby all night. When she went downstairs, she found that the house was also cleaned up. With the help of the nanny, Mary's life seemed particularly easy. The relationship between the two became more and more intimate, and Mary even became more and more cheerful because of the nanny. However, on this day, the nanny who was always on time was late. Mary was going to give the nanny a holiday to relax, but the nanny suggested going out to relax together. Then the two came to a party and released themselves crazily. After the carnival, the nanny actually proposed to resign. After such a long time together, Mary had already regarded the nanny as a spiritual pillar. Mary couldn't accept the nanny's departure at all. She tried her best to save her relationship, but the nanny had made up her mind. On the way home, Mary kept thinking about the nanny's departure. She was distracted for a moment and didn't notice the oncoming truck. She turned the steering wheel sharply and fell into the water. In a trance, she saw the nanny turned into a mermaid and untied her seatbelt. Then the nanny swam towards the depths of the sea. When Mary woke up, she found herself in the hospital bed. She realized that the nanny would never come back. The doctor outside the ward told David that because Mary had been raising the child alone at home, she suffered from postpartum depression and developed schizophrenia. It turned out that the nanny had never existed, and everything was an illusion created by Mary under great pressure. Mary closed her eyes and finally realized that the gentle nanny was just an illusion created by her inner desire for redemption.